Good evening. This begins a new session of reading, and I'm covering chapter 12. It's somewhat of a story, so it's a little tricky to summarize because each detail is unrelated to the previous one. And it's dense with different ideas from one verse to the next. Anyway, chapter 11 had just ended, and chapter 11 verse... one moment. Chapter 11 verse 15, the seventh angel has sounded. And it's kind of a big deal. But then 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, the chapter is finished. So it's almost as if chapter 12 is starting not too much after this. So when it says, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven," it's important to realize that the previous verse in chapter 11 was talking about how the temple of God was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament, and there were lightnings and voices and thunderings and an earthquake and a great hall. And then the very next verse, and I understand historically maybe chapters didn't actually denote, they weren't even there, they weren't penned in. So I hear, but I don't know if I believe that. But anyway, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars." So this is, once again, this comes after the temple of God is opened in heaven. So I know that there's, I don't know. So I guess I have a tendency to pass judgment and say, well, who's this woman? Is she good? Is she bad? What's going on? And she being with a child, so she's pregnant, needed to be delivered. And then the subject changes, and it's talking about another wonder that appears in heaven, and it's a dragon with 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 crowns. This dragon drew his tail and casts some of the stars of heaven to earth. How much of that is figurative, I don't know. And this dragon wants to eat this lady's baby. Perhaps that's the reason for this is this next verse. She's bringing forth this man-child, and he's going to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. I'm going to guess maybe the dragon is upset because this man-child will rule all nations with a rod of iron. I'm just thinking this out loud for the first time. Never really thought this one through before. I guess I read it, but maybe I didn't understand it. Really fathom what it was saying. Well, right away, I'm wondering how much of this story, which is fantastical even, maybe that's blasphemous to say, but it's a wild story. But one of the things that comes to my mind is like, there's a pattern there's a certain set of details that happen. And I think about the birth of Jesus Christ's story, say at the beginning of Matthew, where he's being born, and then, like, I don't know, his parents have to go out into a manger at an inn, and then there's these three kings who seem to know to follow Jesus Christ, or the birth, to follow the stars, to follow the star, to find the birth of this new, of Jesus. So I'm trying to sort of think through the related details of this wild story and this woman who's having a baby. And this comes right after the seventh trumpet is sounded, which right away I would almost think is a good thing, like particularly Revelation 11 verse 15, where, like, the kingdoms of this world have become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. So this is great. This is great news. But somehow, and then the story follows down to the temple of God being opened, and then there's another great wonder in heaven. So then, like, this, a great event happens with the seventh trumpet, and now you've got this woman who's going to give birth to a baby, and the dragon's going to eat it because perhaps he's destined to rule all nations with a rod of iron. So the woman flees to the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God. She can be taken care of for 2,000 and some days, and then there's a war in heaven. So I guess I'm kind of remarking on how the seventh angel blowing the trumpet isn't really like the end. There's a little bit of conflict after this. And so there's a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. So the outcome of this war in heaven, with Michael and his angels and the dragon and I suppose his angels, is that the dragon, which gets specific as to who that is, no longer has a place anymore in heaven. And I read it earlier and noticed that this there refers to the possession of the dragon and his angels. So it seems that their place, neither was their place found any more in heaven. So this dragon or devil is cast out, and he deceives the whole world. He was cast out into earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Well, that's where we are. We are in earth, so far as I know. Is this where he is in the future, or now, or when did this come about? I mean, there's a lot of what ifs, right? So I say, what if this seventh trumpet hasn't been blown yet, and it's to happen in the future? Then that means there will be a war in heaven with Michael and his angels against this dragon, and this dragon will be cast out of heaven. It's yet to happen. Well, no matter. There are certainly a lot of hypothetical ways of thinking this through, and maybe that's not for a summary video, that's for future videos and future study. And I heard, I'll read this in full. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, "Now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ, for the accuser of our brethren is cast down," which would be the devil or the dragon, "which accused them before our God day and night." This isn't always an easy topic, but I'm of the opinion that this has already taken place, because the devil is kind of seen as a fallen angel. And if he's got this reputation, then he wouldn't still be in heaven now, only waiting to be cast down. So I don't know. I have a tendency to think that this is describing a story that's taken place already. Or maybe the timeline for Revelation as a whole bounces around back and forth, so it's not linear. It's kind of jumping around on the timeline of things, which is really even more confusing, but I'm just trying to rationalize what it's saying and fit it into my current worldview and understanding of things. And they overcame him, the dragon, I guess, by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. I pulled up the book of John, chapter 12, verse 25. I found it through a word search. Not that astute of a biblical student to know where it was. But Jesus Christ, I believe, is speaking here, saying, "He that loveth his life shall lose it, and he that hateth his life in this world shall keep it unto life eternal." So I'll read this verse in Revelation again. I haven't figured it all out yet. I'm working on it here. "And they overcame him," I believe the dragon, "and they overcame the dragon by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto their death." So, to work this through, I guess the servants of God who overcame the dragon by the blood of the Lamb did not love their lives. So what does John say about the consequence of not loving your life? Well, if you don't love your life in this world, although that speaks of this world, you shall keep it unto life eternal. It's, in my own opinion, it's as if you hate your life, you don't absolutely love it in this world. You shall keep it unto life eternal. Maybe not in this world, but you'll keep it unto life eternal. I don't know how to read that. I think that if you hate your life in this world, you don't like this world, then you can keep your life in sort of an eternal world, apart from this world. It's kind of how I'm reading that, but now I'm getting off topic. Maybe if I agree, or maybe I can leave a comment below. Well, I'm not about to critique the Bible, but I'm just saying what I think I see written here. That the servants, maybe angels, who overcame the dragon by the blood of the Lamb, didn't love their life in the world unto death. So maybe they lost their lives and had eternal life instead. I'm reading it that way, but I'm tired and it's late, so if I think I'm wrong, maybe I'll leave a comment below in the future. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. So this is good for those in heaven. But woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. Now the question I'm asking is, okay, so what this story sort of tells is that, well, the devil is come down to earth at a specific time. And woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because they'll be joined by the devil who has just come down. So that would imply that before he comes down, whether that's in the past or present or the future, at some point prior to him coming down, they're on earth without him. Which is interesting. So he would have been in heaven, everybody else who was in heaven was in heaven, and then there's the inhabitants of the earth who are not in heaven, and they're down here without the devil. So that's an interesting picture. That's not what this verse is saying, but implicit in this verse is that what I've just described has existed like that for some length of time previously. And how did that come about? That's an even more interesting question. And I suppose the question I have is, why are the people that are in earth and not in heaven? How did that come about? I mean, I'm thinking now, like, from a biblical point of view, like the story of Abraham, or the story of Moses, where you have basically people migrating. And I think I made a previous video on Abraham and that very topic. And then noticing how the Abraham story has similar details to the Moses one, and like the Exodus story. And then, what else was I thinking? I'll just read the next verse. And when the dragon saw that he was cast onto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. That would kind of assume that this realm called Earth is where the woman who is bringing forth her man-child is residing. But it doesn't necessarily read like that, like the woman is in the wilderness, wherever that is. Is that on Earth? I don't know. Is the woman in some other realm that's not Earth? And could the dragon still hold power to another realm, even though that dragon is now in Earth? So I would just assume that the woman is here on Earth in this place. But I suppose there's flexibility there. Does this mean this specific woman is persecuted, or womankind is persecuted? I haven't sorted out. And the woman is given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time, and times, and a half a time, from the face of the serpent. So the woman is nourished from the face of the serpent. Now I'm going to scroll up as well to find the verse where it says the woman is already sent or in the wilderness. So let's scroll up. Okay. So, that was verse 6, and the woman fled into the... This is after she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness where she hath a place prepared of God. It doesn't say by God, it says of God, which is jumping out at me as a little bit unusual. That they should feed her there 1,260 days. Ooh, well, if she's being fed by God here in the wilderness, unfortunately, it says that in the wilderness she's nourished from the face of the serpent, which makes me almost suggest things that I don't want to. I won't. I'll just leave a bit of a pause here. I know what I'm saying. I'm not going to say it out loud. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. Well, would that be Noah's flood? Like some type of flood like that? Does that story tie in here? And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth. So the earth has kind of like a personality, and it's a woman also, her mouth, and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. So assuming the earth is personified as a woman, as it seems to say, it's like here, the dragon is spitting water like a flood into her mouth. Strange. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. I think every time I learn about a new character in the book of Revelation, there's a tendency to want to judge, or at least determine, is this a good guy or a bad guy? Like the two witnesses that came up before, are they good or bad, or who do they represent? It even speaks of Jesus Christ himself as a witness in Revelation chapter 1, I believe. But that's getting off topic. But this woman, I would almost say, is a good guy, one of the good people. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So this woman's offspring, maybe they're grown adults, who knows, but they keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Now, I'm just thinking this through, in this chapter, verse 7, the war in heaven, Michael and his angels are fighting against the dragon and the dragon's angels. and the dragon loses and is cast out of heaven into earth. When he gets there, he seeks, what's the word? Persecution of the woman, which brought forth the man-child, and then she's given wings to fly away. Well, I lose my train of thought, my tangent. But anyway, I think what I was trying to really get at here is that, okay, so the serpent, not the serpent. It's a different discussion. Is the serpent the same thing as the dragon? Because the way I'm reading it, it seems like they're different. Because they're different personalities mentioned. They just seem like different characters. That's worth studying. Maybe I can timestamp that and sort that one through below. But anyway, my point, I'm just still getting at it. There was a war in heaven, in verse 7, between Michael and his angels and the dragon and the dragon's angels. And because of that, the dragon's cast out. When the dragon goes to earth, now he's persecuting the woman. The woman and her offspring keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So it would seem that the dragon, which was in heaven and was warring with all the angels, is carrying on the same fight, the same dispute, same intent, same purpose, same end goal, same, war. He's continuing it in the earth, and now this is going against the woman who's in the earth, who is nourished by the serpent, which is really like, wow, okay, that sounds like a Genesis story kind of thing going on. Especially when it's talking about generations and the man-child. A serpent, like there's a serpent in the tree in Genesis. Question to search for, what's the name of that tree in Genesis again? Because there's the tree of life, and that's mentioned. I'm getting it mixed up now. Maybe I can answer my question. Okay, well, what I propose for myself is to maybe do some word searches for some of the things I have talked about in just Revelation chapter 12, and to try to do a recap video, because I think there's a lot of loose ends in what I just discussed. It's certainly not getting closer to a summary.